I think Houston doesn't get that much attention. It's so far down, and it's in Texas, and people who aren't from Texas think all Texas is cowboys, and I don't know what they think honestly, but I know they don't think anything like this.
My name is Jacob Duarte.
Play in Dress Code, Narrowhead, The Pose, and Scourge.
My name is Carson Wilcox. I play in Narrowhead, Dress Code, and Scourge, and Middle Child.
Dress Code and The Pose are a little like American hardcore. Narrowhead, just loud rock music. Scourge is more like my take on death metal and hardcore mixed.
Scourge is like a really heavy, like late 80s NYHC. I met Jacob through a close mutual friend of ours, I guess like our sophomore year of high school, so we were probably like 15 or 16, and I think we like jammed a little bit that day, probably just like some songs that we both knew, but then
A band I was in at the time needed a drummer. He joined that, and then since then we've kind of just kept up the relationship and just kept jamming. And I mean, I play better with him than anyone else, so like I don't know if that describes the relationship, I'd say.
I think for a long time, pretty much any Texas city's music scene was sort of seen as living in the shadow of Austin, which, I mean, Austin has like always had great punk bands, and I mean the new like breed of Austin punk bands is obviously incredible, but I guess also part of it was for a while Houston didn't really have like a super active or thriving hardcore scene. You know, you had like sort of like the mid 2000s bands that were like heavier hardcore bands doing their thing, and then I don't know, there was sort of a resurgence, I guess, around the time I started going to shows, honestly, like a few years ago, with bands like Back to Back and them doing their thing.
I would say Back to Back kick-started a lot of the scene now, because before then there wasn't really much, not even shows really. So when Back to Back put out like Flesh and Bone, a lot of bands would seem to start popping up after that.
The vibe at Houston shows, the past, you know, like year or so has been really chill. There's a lot of diversity in the bands, and you know, a lot of the gigs that are getting booked are pretty mixed bills, but you know, it's chill to see so many different like flavors of hardcore and punk represented and like supported equally in Houston, which is cool.
I mean, I don't know. I think people who get it pay attention to Houston. It's just hard for the mainstream, the main crowd to like actually pay attention to it. But Houston is very underground. So, I mean, there's like rap like Screwed Up Click and DJ Screw are still barely being found out about when that happened like 15 years ago in the 90s. And Houston's just always been an underground thing, like with punk bands, rap, just anything really. Like, I think that's why.